All right, today we are diving deep into the mind of a former FBI kidnapping negotiator to pull out his field-tested tools for getting what you want. So, what if the key to winning isn't about arguing your case, but actually about listening? Let's break down the core ideas from Chris Voss's incredible book, Never Split the Difference. First things first, you gotta forget everything you've learned from those typical business school textbooks. I mean, these techniques weren't dreamed up in a classroom. No, they were forged in the fire of actual life or death hostage situations. This is negotiation where the stakes couldn't be higher.
Okay, let's just drop right into it with a crazy high-stakes scenario. Imagine for a second that you're the negotiator, and this is the call you get. That one sentence right there, it holds the key to a completely different way of thinking about how to get what you want.
So, what's the real story behind that phone call? Well, it wasn't a real kidnapping, thank goodness. It was actually a surprise simulation at Harvard Law School, of all places. So on one side, you've got the world's most respected negotiation theorists, and on the other, you've got Chris Voss, a street-smart FBI agent whose experience comes from the real world, not from a book. You can see right away how fundamentally different their approaches are. The Harvard method, it's all about logic, rational problem solving. They use concepts like BATNA, that's your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. But the FBI's approach, that was born out of the chaos of the real world. It's all about psychology, about understanding human emotion when things get really intense. They were playing two completely different games. So, instead of throwing out a lower number or starting an argument, Voss just calmly asks this simple, open-ended question. And that one little move, it completely changes the game. It forces the kidnappers to stop making demands and to start thinking about his problem, his challenges.
And here it is, the core lesson. The Harvard professors, they were totally stumped. All their logical frameworks and traps were useless because Voss just wasn't playing their game. He completely sidestepped their logic. And in doing so, he proved that in the real world, raw human emotion will beat a rational argument almost every single time.
So how in the world did this emotional approach just completely dismantle the world's best logical frameworks? Well, the secret? It lies in a fundamental truth about how our brains are actually wired.
This is exactly why the Harvard approach just fell flat. You see, traditional negotiation assumes that people are rational actors, but Voss understood the real truth. We're not logical robots at all. We are primarily driven by our fears, our desires, and our gut feelings.
The work of psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky actually proved this scientifically. They identified over 150 of these things called cognitive biases that just warp our decision-making. I mean, take loss aversion, for example. That's our tendency to feel the pain of a loss way more than the pleasure of an equal gain. These biases are running in the background, constantly and irrationally shaping our choices, and we don't even realize it's happening.
Kahneman gave us this really powerful way to think about it, the two systems of the mind. System 1 is our animal mind. It's fast, emotional, totally instinctive. System 2 is our logical mind. It's slow and deliberate. Now here's the kicker. It's the emotional System 1 that's really in the driver's seat. It's the one steering the supposedly rational thoughts of System 2.
And that, right there, is the secret. Instead of trying to win some logical argument with a person's System 2 brain, Voss's techniques are specifically designed to influence their emotional System 1 first. Because if you can affect how they feel, you can then guide their rational thinking and ultimately their decisions. Okay, so how do we actually use this understanding of the emotional brain? Let's get into the toolkit. We're going to use a real-life bank robbery to see how these deceptively simple techniques work when the pressure is really on.
The very first tool is, well, it's just your voice. By speaking slowly and calmly and letting your tone inflect downwards at the end of sentences, you project control and reassurance. It just makes the other person feel safe and calm, which is exactly the state you need them to be in.
And then there's mirroring. Now this is so simple it almost feels like a trick, but it is incredibly effective. All you do is repeat the last 1 to 3 keywords the other person just said, but you say it like a question. This simple little act builds instant rapport and makes people feel like you're actually listening to them. Let's see how this works during a real bank robbery. The hostage taker. He's agitated, he's blaming the police for the whole situation getting out of hand. Now, our first instinct is to argue back, right? To defend ourselves. But the negotiator? He does something totally different. See the move right there? Just by mirroring those last few words with a questioning tone, the negotiator completely avoids an argument. It's a non-confrontational prompt that just encourages the robber to explain more, to keep talking, which de-escalates the entire situation. And the result was just incredible. The robber started talking and talking and talking, what Voss calls vomiting information. That simple mirror led him to reveal critical details about a getaway driver the FBI didn't even know existed. You see, mirroring triggers this deep biological instinct to connect with people, making them reveal way more than they ever intended.
So, the big question, how does any of this apply when you're not trying to talk down a bank robber? Well, the real power of these tools is that they are designed for the negotiations you and I face every single day.
Because that's what life is, right? It's just one negotiation after another. Whether you're trying to buy a car, asking your boss for a raise, or even just trying to decide on your kid's bedtime, you are negotiating. You're trying to influence behavior and gather information.
Okay, so let's put this all together into a guide that you can start using immediately. Start asking those calibrated how or what questions, just like Voss did. Use mirroring to build that rapport. Get that calm, downward inflecting voice going. And above all, listen way more than you speak. Make the entire conversation about them.
So, let me leave you with this one last provocative idea. We live in a world that's constantly telling us to argue louder, to be more assertive, to get our way. But what if the real key is the exact opposite? What if it's all about just listening better? So the next time you find yourself in a negotiation, remember the FBI's secret. The most powerful tool you have isn't force, it's genuine understanding.